So Autumn Statement 2023 for mortgage and protection advisors. Broadly speaking, there's been 4 things that come out of the Autumn Statement that's going to affect you. The first one is the government's mortgage guarantee scheme. Yeah, let's write that all in there for you. The mortgage guarantee scheme. The good news is that's now been extended for a year or so. That's now available until June 25, which is, a long way away, really, if you think about it. June 25. Now, what does this do? Well, this allows lenders to very easily lend 95% loan to value. And it offers like an old-fashioned mortgage indemnity, a higher lending charge. And the lenders can use government money to guarantee their mortgage lending up to 95% loan to value. Some are using it, some aren't. The government charge the lender for it, so the lender has to obviously pass it on as interest rate. So customers don't see this. They don't really know that the government's guaranteeing their mortgage. Brokers might not even know it because you just see a 95% mortgage. But what it means is that many, many more lenders can offer 95% loan to value when the marketplace with house prices coming down may not be suitable for that kind of lending. So I think actually that's probably the best piece of news we've had out of the Autumn Statement. That'll keep lending frothy and exciting next year. So that's number 1. Number 2, which doesn't really affect you as a mortgage advisor because you're not going to be qualified or authorised, is ISAs. But if you're doing your CMAP or you've got a retest from your company, you should know this. Now, what have they done to ISAs then? Well, they haven't changed any of the limits or anything like that. But what they have done from next year onwards is they're going to let people pay into multiple ISAs in the same year. Now, why would people want to do that, you ask? Well, they do, don't they? I mean, I've got a couple of closed-up cash ISAs. I can put money into both of those. As long as I don't exceed the limits, then I'm okay. And I can transfer them around if I want to as well. So that's useful if you're looking to move your money from, say, a stocks and shares platform to another platform. You can do it in the same year as well. But what's also interesting as well is they're allowing you to invest in fractional shares. Now, I thought I'd mention this one, fractional shares, because you may not have come across the term fractional, as in fraction. I'll write it up for you so you know what I'm talking about here. Fractional, they call them. Fractional. The whole point is that a share is purchased in a unit trust, OIC, investment trust, ETFs. They all invest in shares, don't they? We know that in the stock markets around the world. And most of them just buy 5 or 10 or million shares. But some shares, you see, are so expensive that to buy one share is more than your monthly premium or your annual premium. So they're allowed now to buy fractional shares, which are bits of a share. Now, I looked into this and I was amazed. I'll share with you the top 7 most expensive shares in the world, and you'll be amazed by these figures actually. So let me share these with you first of all. Here we go. Let's put them all up there for you so you can see it, and I'll pop myself in as well because I can. So what have we got here then? Well, we've got 7 shares. You probably recognise a couple of the companies on here. Next PLC, Lindt. If you're into chocolate, you know your Lindt chocolate, don't you? Shelley, she loves her Lindt chocolate, so does Jess. You've got Amazon, of course, we know and love. Alphabet is Google. Now, just look at the price of those shares. I mean, the Berkshire Hathaway is more of an investment trust, isn't it? But $303,000 for a share. I mean, Next is $6,000. Amazon is $1,500, and of course, Google down the bottom of the alphabet is just over $1,000, or if you talk about dollars. So what you're doing is you're buying bits of those shares. That you can trade them in fractions. You can cut them up and trade them in fractions. I suppose it stops them from issuing all these rights issues and things to reduce the value of the shares. So that's a fractional share. I don't know if you knew that or not, but now you do. Okay. The other one, which is a bit more well known, is tax cuts. Tax cuts. Now, tax cuts, of course, help everybody. Do we need to know about this? No, not really, but it'll affect us. It'll affect our customers. Now, the big one here, if you're doing a CMA, is national insurance. For all intents and purposes, national insurance is a tax, isn't it, for all intents and purposes? So what's happening to national insurance? Well, there's 2 things happening, and you've got employees, okay, and you've got self-employed. Self-employed. This is where the changes are going on. Now, for employees, not the employers, they still have to pay the same amount of money, but they've got a few extras on their side of things. But for employees, The main rate is being reduced by a couple of percent down to 10%. So that's a lovely saving actually for people. The main rate, by the way, is only paid on a certain amount. Above that, it's in a much smaller percentage. But a reduction of 2% on the main rate means that a lot of normal, ordinary, working class people are going to see a big saving in their pocket. My son, for example, who works, he's I'm not sure what his salary is, but his basic's not far north of minimum wage. He therefore pays national insurance, of course he does. So he will see a £30–40 a month in his pay packet, which is a big chunk. I like what he's done here, the Chancellor, because he's giving the ordinary people a saving rather than the the well earners who won't really be affected by this. To them it's pennies, isn't it? Now for self-employed, he's done the same for them as well. Class 4, I don't think you remember your classes. Employees pay class 1, self-employed pay class 2 and class 4 national insurance. Now class 4 is the percentage one, very similar to class 1 really. It's a percentage of their profits. That's going down in the same way as that one's going down. So they've been treated correctly. What he has done finally is got rid of number 2. He's got rid of class 2 national insurance. This has been abolished from April next year, April 24. We'll reflect it in all our revision guides and stuff when we get round to updating them next year. But that's just cleaned that up, which is nice. Now, how's he afforded that? Well, he's not done what Liz did last year and borrowed money to pay for this. He's actually found that there's more money in the pot. There's more money being taken by HMRC and tax. So he's used that money that he wasn't expecting to fund this tax cut just prior to the election. I think it's very clever what he's done there. Now, the problem is, of course, this extra tax money has come in from fiscal drag. You might have heard that phrase, fiscal drag. It means that they keep all the allowances pegged, and they've kept them pegged for a year or two now, for the next few years too. So the personal allowances, high rate thresholds, all those things, they're not budging them. So people's salary increases, and a lot of people have big salary increase this year, have taken them above into high rate tax and beyond. So a lot of people are paying more tax now than last year or year before, purely because the Chancellor didn't increase the allowances, which he would normally do by inflation. Not a lot of people understand fiscal drag, but what it's meant is the government's made a whole lot more dough this year than they were planning to do so. And they're paying it back to people they're hoping are going to vote for them. That's the whole point behind it. And do you know what? There's one final thing that not a lot of people have read about in this one, and I think this is going to affect all of us really, particularly if you are of a certain age. Number 4 I should say, the fourth point here, is that the government have finally decided to get rid of their holding of NatWest shares. There you go. Now NatWest, or used to be RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, was bought pretty much in its entirety by the government in 2008 when we had the financial crash, because they were just going crashing down. So the government capitalised and put a load of money in there, billions, to stop them from going bust, which was the right thing to do. Now they did the same for Lloyd's, but they've sold all those shares back to the market. Now the NatWest shares, they still hold quite a few of these, and they've been trying to sell them back to the marketplace, but they're getting a much lower price than they paid for them. And every time they decide to try and sell them to the marketplace, the deal goes wrong. Anyway, they've decided to sell them to the public in next year. Not a lot of people know that. So the public will be offered these, a bit like, I don't know if you remember from the 80s, Sid, when they sold British gas shares. This is showing my age here. They sold British gas shares in the 1980s under all the privatisation. And Sid was a commercial. Shh, don't tell Sid. I think that's what it was. Sid, don't tell. Anyway, it's all about selling British gas shares. Brilliant marketing campaign from Saatchi & Saatchi. So you'll probably see that next year. So if you can, get some NatWest shares. I'm certainly going to get hold of some of those, because they'll be sold at a much lower price, and they'll probably do quite well after that as well, especially if the market picks up. But they'll do that just before the election, because that's what they're all about. They want to stay in power, don't they? So that's the fourth point that not a lot of people know about. I thought I'd share that with you. Share it with you? Anyway, that's enough of the autumn statement.